Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Today, we're visiting the head office of Maruti Suzuki India, and we are here to meet Shashank Srivastava, the company's Senior Executive Officer of Marketing and Sales. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll talk about marketing both new and legacy automobiles, the ever-evolving Indian consumer, and why Maruti is cautious about the EV market and more. So let's get ready to melt with Shashank Srivastava. Shashank Srivastava, welcome back to Melt. Last time we spoke to you was about a year and a half ago. The country had just started bouncing back from the lockdown. So has the new normal completely set in place and has the consumer behavior changed?
Yes, so in some respect, during the COVID period, there were many changes in the consumer buying behavior. But subsequently, it has settled in with some changes still existing. Some have actually accelerated, and some have gone back to what they were pre-COVID times. So let me explain a little bit. During the COVID period, trust became the currency of brand differentiation. So it was not really about product or even services. It was really about trust. And in terms of consumer behavior itself, because of safety concerns, people started moving away from public transport, from shared mobility, towards more personal mobility. Mm-hmm. That was actually a positive for the industry because we did see an upsurge in the demand rather than the demand coming down, and largely because of this. If you see the type of buyer during the COVID period, first-time buyers increased. The additional car buying increased because people wanted another car in the family because probably they were earlier using public transport or taxis or whatever. And replacement car buying came down, which means people were reluctant to upgrade to higher cars.
Perhaps because of economic uncertainty?
Yes, because of uncertainty and the average age of the vehicles which used to come in the used car market increased from about 7.2 years to more than 9 years, which means vehicles were being held by the consumer for a longer period of time. Of course, in the terms of buying process itself, the discovery became largely digital. And that was actually quite obvious because, for us, for example, 3% of our sales used to come from digital. It's gone up to beyond 25% in that period. It still continues, and I'll speak about that a little later. So a lot of these changes happened. People became more conscious of the environment. So the powertrain choices also started changing a little bit. And I think post-COVID, a lot of things have actually accelerated. The transformation to digital, for example, the discovery of vehicles and the details, the comparison, the journey itself has become more digitalized and it's actually accelerating. It's not coming down post-COVID. However, there are certain elements like visits to the showroom, again, back to almost the same levels as pre-COVID, even though the discovery process has become largely digital. The purchase of vehicles through digital process have increased. And it's actually increasing post-COVID. And also, for example, financing or even type of buying, subscription, for example. Subscription has increased from about a level of about 10 vehicles in the COVID times, 2021 to now about 300 a month. Financing on the digital platform was just about 1,000 earlier. It's now more than 43,000. And that is something which is accelerating. And even in terms of the media consumption, which was both print and television, etc., is also shifted a lot to the digital thing. So you see emergence of OTT, for example, or consumption on the digital media. And accordingly, our spends also have changed. So these are some of the changes which I have observed.
Okay, let's talk about your spends. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
So there's obviously money being spent on both the Fronx and the Jimny.
Yes.
How is traditional advertising working for you these days?
Yeah, so the way we look at it is not really traditional or as some people say legacy.
Legacy or digital, right?
Or digital.
So how do you look at it?
Yeah, so actually we look at it more as an omni-channel sort of concept, which is that people during the course of their day will be looking at consumption of media through different means, both digital as well as traditional. It's like how your brand KPIs are changing given the mix that you have chosen to adopt. For example, you mentioned Fronx and Jimny. We have now about 32% spends on digital, which is of course much higher than what it used to be, but still we are spending a lot both on television as well as print. 38% is television.
Some marketers say that the spray and pray advertising on TV, that era is over and it's all going to be focused advertising on digital. So I asked this question of all marketers. Suppose you work for a TV channel, would you be worried that your revenues are going to go down?
Yes, a little bit, yes, especially because there is this thought prevalent that the spray and pray, which is what marketers used to do when you go through, such mediums as television or even print, for example, to a large extent. Of course, you know your audience a little bit, but it's still spray and pray. Whereas the more personalized type of marketing, which is possible through the digital means which are available today. But I think when it comes to the stickiness of the message, of the imagery, television is still quite good. And you could actually have a mix as well, which is you could have the imagery built on large screen, but more personalized, like through OTT type of viewing. But really, I think both have a place. The television also have a place, as also the digital spends obviously have been increasing because the technology is enabling you to have more personalized experiences with consumers, and consumers love that.
And the focus of this omni-channel marketing initiative, is it to drive customers to a showroom so they can actually experience the vehicle? Or is it for them to drive consideration, perhaps purchase digitally?
Yeah, so it is actually through the buying funnel that we operate in. So, for example, a new brand like Franks, we do try to work on the upper level of the funnel, try to drive awareness, build frequency of the exposition of the brand. On the other hand, there are some traditional or the existing brands, which basically the image is more or less clear, the brand has been positioned, and we are only working at the lower end of the funnel. Now, the choice of medium also depends on what area of funnel you are working on. So if for us, it is like for different brands at different times, you have to work on different portions of the funnel. Certainly, we won't like to drive consideration. So we work on both the brand salience, which is the UA and the awareness type thing, and then the brand preference, which is about consideration, about mind shares. So both are important, and it depends on what stage your brand is in. We are having at this moment 16 brands. So you can imagine different brands will be at different, focus will be on different type or the different areas of the funnel for each. For the Franks and Jimny, it's largely at this time on the upper end of the funnel, which is building awareness. But for, let's say, an Alto, it is really at the lower end. And the choice of media reflects that.
Shashank, how do you split your time between these 16 brands?
That's a great question.
Competing brand managers competing for your attention and time.
Yes. So we have how we are organized in our marketing division is we have one Nexa channel brands, one is the Arena channel brands. That is the first level of where to have more time to spend on.
The Nexa bucket or the Arena bucket?
Arena bucket. And then within that, of course, you have segmentations. So sometimes you have products in the same segment across channels. For example, Grand Vitara is in Nexa, which is a SUV. But Brezza is also an SUV, but it's in the Arena channel. So sometimes you slice it by segments, and sometimes
That's my point exactly.
Yes.
Is the consumer getting confused between what is Nexa, what is Arena? Because some people think Nexa is a car, some people think Nexa is a showroom, some people think Arena is an experience. So are these two, let's say, showroom experiences being perceived the way you intended?
Yes, I think to a large extent, and our measurement of that is our brand scores for the channels. So I think largely those measurements are up to our expectation. However, it's a continuously evolving market, and therefore we need to be alert to the possibility of what areas of improvement are there, and must continuously improve. And Nexa, by the way, is the third largest or the fourth largest brand in different states. In some states, it's also the second largest.
As a standalone brand.
As a standalone brand.
Okay.
That to our mind is the real measure of our success. And in fact, we have with the Franks and the Jimny, we are targeting to be the number 2 brand for Nexa in this year. That is 23-24, the coming financial year.
Let's talk about those two brand names, Franks and Jimny. Franks is an unusual word. It doesn't roll off the Indian tongue very easily. Jimny, I imagine, sounds a lot like Jimmy, so it may roll off the Indian tongue. Tell us about the marketer's decision to stay with those names, Franks and Jimny.
So Jimny actually is a very
it's a legacy brand.
So it's really, and Jimny has made a great name for itself across the globe. It's not only a legacy brand. It is like it represents the SUV off-roading codes of Suzuki, and Suzuki is famous for that in the small SUV section. So we obviously wanted to carry forward that legacy. On the Franc side is where the lot of people have said, what is Francs and what does it mean?
It's an odd name.
So it's really about it's two words combined. It's the next frontier. So you have front standing for frontier, and the next X standing coming from the next. So the next frontier is Francs, and the reason why we call Francs the next frontier is because while it is a compact SUV, and you have so many compact SUVs,
the market is flooded with SUVs of all
this is a little different.
Okay.
It is more advanced in terms of design, more futuristic. It appeals to the experimental consumer. It appeals to the young, urban, technology savvy, because it's got a lot of technology in it.
This is the Francs.
Yeah, this is the Francs. And we have the Brezza in this segment, by the way, and it's the market leader. In fact, it is the largest selling SUV, is the Brezza now. So even though we have the largest selling, this segment has grown so big. It's about 23% of the overall market.
So you need multiple offerings.
So multiple offerings, and within that you have seen the emergence of sub-segments. So sub-segments means there is a lifestyle compact SUV also coming through, like the Thar, for example. And that is the space where we are operating with our Jimny. And then you have this futuristic, more urban, people who want to have the new type of image of the compact SUV, which this segment is also emerged, for which Francs appeals to. That's why the tagline for Francs says the shape of new.
Let's talk about the Jimny consumer. How is the Indian Jimny consumer likely to be different from the global Jimny consumer or the non-Indian Jimny consumer?
Yeah, so first of all, this is a SUV, and its real capability is off-roading. In the global, I'd say the non-Indian global consumer, there is a lot of off-roading that people do. So the reason why Jimny is so successful, in Middle East, in Latin America, in Europe, etc., is because people actually use it for off-roading. In India, while people want that image of off-roading,
our roads are a little off-roady themselves. Our main roads are quite
so I'll come to that. But that's not the off-roading I have in mind when I say off-roading. There is a much lesser off-roading for Indian consumers, although they want to have that image because it gives you that sense of
I want an off-road car, but I want to drive it in the city.
So you will see, in fact, some of the vehicles which are in this category, they are largely urban consumers driving on urban streets, but actually the image is like it's a very sporty and a very, not sporty, it's a very tough off-roading type of vehicle. But you are right. One of the reasons why SUVs have been so successful in India now recently is because people have design preferences, gives them that driving position which is upright, makes them in some sense they feel they are in control of the roads, gives them that status, the flexibility of interior space, and also the high ground clearance. And you mentioned that the Indian roads may actually require a very high ground clearance, and that is one of the reasons why people started preferring the SUVs.
And does your SUV portfolio cannibalize your own sedan portfolio and the other portfolio?
I won't say a lot of cannibalization, but the design preference itself has changed. One, that is the reason why if you see SUVs about 6-7 years back was just 6% of the market. Today, they are 46% of the market.
6 to 46%.
46 in this last 6-7 years. Sedan at one point of time, about 7 years back, were about 23-24% of the
It was the most popular segment at that time.
And now it is around 10%. So it has gone down 13. Hatches have also come down from about 45% to now about 36%. So sedans are down about 13%. And 9% down for, in terms of the overall share of the industry, 9% down for the hatches, which means that 9 and 13, 22% lift for the sedan. Some drop, of course, from the van segment as well.
Will this preference for SUVs continue to stay, in your opinion, or will it change again in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so our projection up till 2030 is that this is probably going to stabilize around the 50-52% mark from the current 45-46%. In other words, it's going to grow. It's not just an Indian phenomena. In terms of the growth for the preference for SUV, actually, you see in Latin America, Europe, Korea,
It's a
China.
global
It's a
phenomenon.
global phenomenon.
And our media reports here, ADEX is going to increase by 25% in this year. A bulk of that will go to the SUV marketing pool, I imagine. How are you going to spend the extra 25%?
Of course, the spends in the last 2 years have been relatively muted for both the reasons of that there were supply constraints and really a long waiting list for some of our models, still is. But yes, we introduced the new products. So the spends on advertising have gone up. You are right, by about 20-25%. In fact, if you look at the total marketing spends, including the tactical marketing spends, which we do for the for our regional at the regional level, is about maybe 1,500 crores for us this year. That's 20-25% up over last year. Next year projection is a growth of about 10-15% because we will be introducing new products. We will have the Fronx and the Jimny actual start of sale happening in April or end of April types.
Are there going to be long waiting lists again, or have
Already
supply
it
constraints?
appears to be, because we already
Is
got.
this a issue of supply constraints, chips, etc.?
Yes, it is to a large extent that. And like Jimny, for example, has already got about 23,000 bookings. Fronx about 15,000. So I can imagine that by the time when we start the sale, I would expect Jimny and Fronx to have a long waiting already.
So is it time for Maruti to diversify into chip manufacturing as well? At
It-
some point,
it's
you
a
might have to
different
consider
kind.
it, right?
Yeah, but chip manufacturing is a little different because
That seems to be the bottleneck for many auto manufacturers.
correct. But I think there are very few global players
Fabs,
doing
yes.
chip. And the reason is because the economies of scale for chip manufacturing is huge. Billions of chips, billions and billions of chips. And it requires not just the support of one industry, but a large number of industries together make up for that type of volumes. So, and a large number of those industries in large number of countries can make up to that scale.
Correct.
So
it's a
that is
very
why
complex supply chain issue.
So it's not going to be easy. Although I know there are groups which are thinking of setting up chip manufacturing in India as well.
No conversation with an auto marketer can obviously be complete without conversation about EV. Your battery electric SUV. What are the plans for that?
EV market in India is still small.
Maruti has been a bit bearish on the EV market consistently for the last
Yes.
6-7 years.
Yeah. So I'll come to that actually. I want to explain that because that's a very common question. Last year in Indian market, 21,000 EVs were sold. I'm talking of passenger vehicles. That is roughly 0.6% of the total market. This year, about 50,000 will be sold. So roughly around 1.2 million, 1.2% of the total market. Why is the adoption of EVs not so large? To my mind, there are two main reasons. And this is actually not just for India, but this applies across the globe as well. One is the cost of acquisition. The cost of acquisition for EV is quite high. Of course, the ratio for the corresponding ICE vehicle, the internal combustion engine vehicle, and a EV vehicle is roughly 1.4 to 1.5.
Okay.
That is, it is 40 to 50%
More expensive.
for a SUV type of vehicle. For a hatch or a sedan, it could be even higher, 1.5.
And you're talking upfront cost, not life cycle cost.
Yeah, upfront cost. So one is the cost of acquisition is very high, and you might ask, why is the cost of acquisition so high? Because after all, it's a very simple chassis to make, and you just have to have a battery put
Fewer
there.
moving parts.
Yes, fewer moving parts. The logic is that you require a very large battery, and battery chemistry today, which is available, is quite expensive. In fact, for a EV, 45 to 50% of the cost is
the
battery cost. So you need to do something to bring the battery cost down.
And you're lugging that much dead weight on top of that. I
Exactly.
imagine,
So
yeah.
one is, of course, that you need to have battery cell chemistries which give you higher energy densities to have, without adding to the weight significantly, you can have more energy in terms of the electric power. And second is cost of the battery has to be brought down. And second is the charging infrastructure. So the charging for these batteries take a long time. And in India, public charging infrastructure is not really developed. So these are the two major constraints. The projections are, the consensus projection is that about 17% of the market, passenger vehicle market, is going to be EV in 2030. Now, 2030, the overall market projection is 6 million. That means 17% of 6 million, about 1 million of the market is going to be EV in 2030. So the question is, what do you do about these two things? Charging infrastructure and the battery cost. Suzuki has decided that we will try one of the good ways of bringing the cost down bring down the cost of the battery. That is localization of the battery. And that is the reason why 10,000 crore investment has been made by Suzuki for battery and related parts localization. That should bring down the cost, which should bring down the cost of acquisition of the overall electric vehicle, which should bring up in the adoption of the
And do you see
EVs.
the entire car industry coming together to create common standards, for instance, for swappable batteries or for interoperable charging points? The infrastructure is common.
Yes, so surely at some point of time, you will have a standardization of the specs. But remember, swappable battery concept is not really very successful so far for the four wheels, because the batteries are large. You can't really,
Lift it and
take it
slide
out.
out, slide in,
So
yeah.
it may be popular for, let's say, two-wheelers or three-wheelers. Some of them, as you can see, but not really for. So, but charging infrastructure is essential, and Maruti Suzuki is working on it. Our experiences from statistical experience from from studying the markets in other areas, that the inflection point of adoption comes when the market penetration of EVs become about 3 to 4%. That's going to happen in 24-25 for India. After which you will see a sudden increase in the adoption rate of EVs, and that's what we are targeting with our EVX, which we unveiled, in the Auto Expo 2 months back. The EVX is going to be our first vehicle, and it is going to come in the financial year 2024-25. At which point of time we believe the market would be ready in terms of the charging infrastructure. We are, I think, being more realistic rather than bearish, because customer convenience also has to be. It's not about technology. It's very easy to put out a vehicle in the market, as some of our competitors have done, to showcase technology. But our objective is beyond showcasing our technology. It is about customer convenience. And I can tell you, and I've been in Maruti Suzuki for 3 decades, and I know how the decision-making process is. When it comes to choice between optics and customer convenience, if there is a clash, as often there is in this case itself, 100 times out of 100, we will prefer customer convenience. 100 times of 100.
All right, Shashank Srivastava, thank you for talking to us at Melt.
Thank you very much.
And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.